Welcome back to the Restart Pod. Um, Today it's just me. Damon had a conflicting time. Shachi's out in Japan. And it's gonna be an unusual episode. I kind of want to do like a little bit of like a channel update, a little bit of like just like some personal sharing slash pitching. Um, it's gonna be even more unusual because I made myself breakfast. It's early lunch rather. It's supremely Italian, but I have a fresh espresso brewed from a Breville little machine. This is a caprese sandwich. I used to eat one of these every single day in college. Um, I just kind of wanted to go through a little bit of pontificating almost about where AI and content and the direction that things are going and should go. For those who've been watching the channel for a little bit or watching our hooks, you'll probably have noticed that sometimes they come out like a little buggy or a little bit weirdly edited. The reason for that is that basically over the last like 2 or 3 months, um, I've been like full Claude editing. So like when you're watching our videos, when you're watching our material, Dave and I, Shashi will record. We can have a set schedule for when we'll be recording. We'll take those recordings, and then I'll basically like I've been building this pipeline over a long, long time, um, to basically just like, hey, simple edits, like manage the audio, manage the stitching, figure out clips that are good and hookable, help us make a variety of thumbnails, help us make a mix of potential options for what we should be testing, chapter generation, descriptions, hashtags, figure out what works. um, and that's obviously evolved like a lot over time. Like I have historically spent a lot of time like in CapCut, in Canva, making the same thing over and over, and then like the algorithm is its own beast. You try to experiment, but if your iteration speed's not fast enough, that algorithm is still this black box, right? Some shorts randomly take off without like any sort of like real systematized way of me of understanding why that happened, whether it's the content, whether it's the edit. um and so for the last few months, I've been kind of taking the things I've been building inside of Claude, inside of ChatGPT, and trying to put together an experience that more broadly people can use. My general stance on like creative integrity and the artistic process and all that sort of stuff is that um, I ultimately want to be a director. I don't want to be like an editor per se. I think a lot of folks who are content creators will end up, I think, deriving the most value in the editor role. If any of you have like done film theory, you'll know about like the mise en scène, the expression transitions. This is a podcast. It's obviously not as serious, but I'm just like trying to produce a show that is interesting and connecting and finding its right audience over time. I'm kind of running the experiment now of, hey, if I get like a pipeline almost running of, here's our brand, here's the sort of stuff we talk about, talking about leaf, here's the stuff we talk about, where can we go to find more people like that? What sort of material do they connect with? And can we take the sort of like natural conversations and stories we're telling and videos we're creating and have them stitched together intelligently in a way that the machine's figuring out like what connects? So to this end, I'll kind of share screen, and I'm going to take a bite of this because it's been sitting here warm. And I've been riffing for too long. So one second. This might have turned into ASMR, so I'm sorry. If I go to a little new app, what we're kind of trying to test against is, can we get to, here, let me pull this over this way. So kind of see like my workflow here. As someone who's like I'm like a hardcore engineer by background, but I'm using Claude, I'm using Codex to kind of build my own engine of sorts. If I share screen, let's go over to this window over here. So even while I'm like working, like we have, this is an app. It's not full online yet. Like this will release more properly, and you'll probably see more announcements about this later. this is what I've kind of been building for the last number of months. With Slow with Claude, like video editing, these systems aren't really good at it yet. And we're kind of waiting on a state change in the models. People are building agentic benchmarks for evals, all that kind of stuff. The premise is pretty simple. And I want to kind of like limit test this against ourselves. So you'll probably see our own content shifting over time. Um, what we're doing is that like our podcast and our short form editing is pretty simplistic, right? Like it has like a typical whoosh hook, like it has like selection of content that's like primed and topical. Like that, the agent does all that work, right? We just record. I dump the recordings into a Claude vibe coded system that will go ahead and pick all these things up, gather that material together, select the most hot sections, stitch it in a way that I've kind of like said, like that looks generally good. Just make all of our short form look like this. I like thumbnails of these varieties. Of course, we need to do descriptions, chapters, all that kind of stuff. Record all that. But what I want to add is first, I think that there's a level of taste making that these systems can't do. I think that'll be a problem that's solved in time. But at least in the modern day, like if you look at any well-produced channel, they are hiring editors for even the shorts level, right? They're bringing together so many people to make these massive timelines of stitching and how the music syncs and where the captions render and how they stitch and transition, right? Some of the best TikToks, some of the best Instagrams have really cool edits, right? There's a whole genre of edits. And I kind of want to run the experiment of like, we make podcast content, we can make any sort of other content. Can we go ahead and like get a system that we can kind of refine our own taste palette against kind of what's on market? Two, we already use the recording software. There's all sorts of these out on market. Said a different way, like I'm an engineer, like it's not hard to vibe code this stuff, especially when there's like very hard, like existing precedent for like cloud live streams and real-time sharing software. This exists. It's not what I'm using right now, but the goal would be launch this, have it come with things like auto mods, like that when folks are in your chat, can they react or get answers to their questions that maybe the hosts are not actually able to attend to, but could get material or kind of like Wikipedia searches or sources and citations against the content of what's being recorded. So if I'm talking about like some token math or like a tweet comes up or something, a mod would be able to bring that up. Live transcripting, obviously great, especially when you consider folks might be listening in other languages or might not be English first listeners. You can obviously kind of make their experience a lot better with a studio that's meant for international consumption. Make this all like AI the hell out of it, like put some real time tooling in there. There's really exciting stuff in real time generally. I'll pocket that for now, but I think that there's a general just opportunity for taking real time recording and real time streaming as content and kind of modifying it with the help of these new agentic tools and voice tools and all this sort of stuff that if I'm speaking to you and you are my listener and maybe you're based in India or maybe you're based in Japan or whatever it may be, for example, it's not hard to imagine that like you could get like a real time sync that my voice, my eyes are all speaking in English here and physically, but they're translated to a sort of like Hindi expressionism and you're hearing Hindi in my voice, right? I don't see why that's not reasonable or possible. Um, then this is kind of all the stuff I'm already doing in Claude. So if you go like look at my like codex history, my Claude history, you'll see I'm doing a lot of like tweak this, tell me how this performed. Let's try this sort of test. Hey, can you make sure that we clip this? That espresso got very cold, unfortunately. If the system is meant for like a non-technical person, like someone who doesn't work in Claude all the time, but also can like, you know, use these as Claude plugins, Claude skills. I think that's just generally where the future of apps is going, where whatever I build in this UI here, I don't think is that important fundamentally over the long term. But in the shorter term, taking the ability to like edit video in mass and understand what your video edits are doing is an uncovered capability. Again, Frontier will continue to push forward. You'll be competing and kind of vulnerable to the rising tide of the Frontier models getting better and better at their jobs. We, for example, have seen Claude in their Mythos demos, they pitched that Mythos and Fable had edited their own video. That's not the same to me as being able to match style, being able to design in a way that, like, if someone wants to make, like, for example, a very satirically leaning video, um, all the LMs don't have a great sense of humor. Humor is a very subjective thing and is very like personal to whoever is directing. Um, Last, and I think most importantly, um, I think with content in general, so Damon and I have talked about this a number of times. There is this kind of self-recursive loop that's like the kind of like final desire of any app of sorts, where the usage of your thing creates its own flywheel, right? Or like it exists in some sort of market where the validation of how things are going is something that an agent can consume and then react to. I think for content, like financial markets, prediction markets, we're seeing a lot of people trying like agentic benchmarks in finance where your evals of how your agent is doing is based on how much money does it make, right? Instead of an eval being a thing that someone has statically procured, you effectively say like throw it into market and let the market be the measure of how well your system is doing. Damon and I both kind of align that the same thing kind of exists for content. Um, where really I kind of want to keep the human core. Like I'm not in the category of like make the AI slop vending machine, like pump out as much content as possible, like be as loud as possible. Um, but what the market should do for like consumption and I think for material is that let's say you're someone who maybe you watch your channel, maybe you watch like Invest Like the Best, maybe you watch Acquired, you're probably founder. Like you're in this category of like tech or tech adjacent, and you have a way that you like to consume material, right? Um, I don't want the systems to be finding as many people as possible. I'd rather that the system is really, really good at delivering the content in a shape that is empathetically aligned between, like if anyone's done like AP Lang or has had like a high school, college prep English class, you might know about like topic, speaker, audience, right? I'm speaker. I'm trying to deliver to some audience, and there's a topic that changes every now and again. And I think in trying to design for what the future of content looks like, that topic, speaker, audience triangle should be really, really narrow with every link so well defined, like so solid, um, that even if maybe we get like 3 viewers per video, but if those 3 viewers are consuming a thing that can actually materially change their views, materially change like their education, materially change um, how much they're able to act as a follow-up in regards to what they've learned or consumed, that is a positive use case of content, right? You look at Mr. Beast, you look at like all these other things. Obviously, those things have grown up so much that they've become like large media enterprises that they have mass appeal. But in a world where the amount of content that's going up is AI generated, the amount of content in the world that is um, super programmatic and losing taste, I think what ends up being valuable is content that has really, really strong links between the speaker and the audience. So the human heart's still there. And what AI is doing is kind of managing the empathetic shape of that, if that makes sense. Like I want to communicate an idea to you. This is a podcast again, it's just like conversation, but you can imagine for like mixed media, for something a little bit more auteur, like what you're trying to do is enable. I might have a whiteboard, it might have a storyboarding system on it. My head has what I want to create. I shouldn't be barricaded by like not knowing Photoshop, not knowing Adobe Illustrator, not having like 70 hours per week to work in CapCut to deliver my story, my ideas to the people who want to consume it. So I guess all this to say, like, you'll probably be watching our channel and our shorts and that sort of thing, and almost be participating in a little bit of experiment. So let us know what is and isn't working. Like, we will be reading the comments super actively. And if you're like, dude, that was straight cheeks, that is fantastic. Like, I want to know when we're doing stuff that's really, really bad. um, And you should kind of go out of your way, because if you are on TikTok, if you're on Instagram, if you're on any of these systems, like, you have consumed AI generated stuff, whether you know it or not. And the matter of fact is, like, I hate it. Like, despite being like super AI pilled as a person, I don't think that we should be like shoveling as much dirt into people's mouths as we can. Um, I'm really, really hopeful that, like, in trying to produce something like this, what we're doing is creating a better community between speaker and audience, right? That um, someone with a vision, someone who wants their voice heard, can deliver their voice more easily and find the right shape for it, that it lands on ears that they care about. Um, so that was Sermon on the Mount, kind of. All that to say, we'll be posting quite a bit more, and you'll probably see a little bit more humor, I suppose, and maybe like a weekly update in regards to like how this is going. Um, this being this like AI assisted director, like channel manager, we're gonna put it up basically with the challenge of, your goal is get a YouTube Gold button. Every single week, we'll document what the agent did. If I intervene, I intervene, but I'll say that. Um, Ultimately, trying to see like what the flywheel of actually meaningful, hopefully non-slop content ends up being. So I'll stop there. Again, this Capri's is getting cold. I can yap very, very easily, but I'm going to take one more bite and ASMR y'all for a sec. We'll wrap there. Um, we'll be back to the kind of usually scheduled stuff momentarily. Um, we'll see y'all soon. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being a part of this experiment with us. It'll continue going. We'll try in a lot of places. And hopefully, if you hate it, blame AI. People already do that anyway, so it's fine. We'll catch y'all later. See ya.